Hello, everyone, and welcome to this conversation presented by White House Custom Color.
Are you trying to mute me?
No, it's just real loud, and I can't.
I sold Amazon, but it was $25.
Listening to listen, not listening to respond.
Yes! Oh, thank you for that.
Hi, Jed. I'm Chris Hanline, the CEO here at White House Custom Color.
We've essentially created and then sent out this consumer-facing survey, right? Can you tell me what it was and why we did it?
So we wanted to focus on consumers who had been portrait active in the last 24 months. We wanted to get the perspective on those that had already spent money on photography in the recent past. We were not necessarily attempting to determine if more people would be interested in pro photography. We were more wanted to focus on those that had already shown interest and if their thoughts and perspectives had been changed by the pandemic.
And what about the results? Can you tell me about the results and start with the results?
So overall, I think we had great news. We were excited about what we got back. It didn't seem like there were too many bad news stories in the results. Consumers value pro photographers and they value what pro photographers provide. But as we've seen for a few years now, pro photographers need to sell that value to those end users, those consumers, and not answer the question on what they don't want for them. And overwhelmingly, the results suggested that physical product was a part of what people were looking for and what they're looking to, why they're looking to go to a pro. And ultimately, they still, even during the pandemic, want to document life events. And they are excited about working with pros and what a pro can provide in those types of scenarios. And it continues the fall on the pro to identify those events and market to those types of consumers.
Ed Monahan, remind us, will you please, of this survey that White House conducted?
Yeah, Jed, we set out to discover several things as learning objectives. You know, we were very interested in how has COVID affected what's important to the consumer. Very specifically, how important and how has that importance changed relative to family and photo. We set out to understand how has COVID changed their attitude and behavior when it comes to pro photography, and what lifestyle changes has COVID had that will require pro photographers to adjust their products, processes, and models. The framework was really a methodology of targeting 1,500 respondents, which had been portrait active in the last 24 months. In order to get 1,500, we actually talked to 3,000 and had a qualifying question. Have you purchased a pro photography product in the last 24 months? If they answered no, they were disqualified. If they answered yes, they were entered into the queue and took the survey. So we ended up with 1,429 complete responses. The framework was really, several points. New norms that will affect them, their spend, both at a macro level and then the spend to update their photos, any projects that they might have worked on as they've had time at home with COVID. And then really the heart of the survey was using a pro, both to update family photos and in general going forward. And then we got into the protocols and precautions. So that was the structure and the sort of purpose and the learning objectives that we set out to do.
So what did you learn from the whole thing? What's the sum it up for me in a few words?
Yeah, Jed, a few words for me is hard. A lot of words.
Less than 2,000 words.
Yeah, it was good news overall. Generally, we were very pleased with the results. And I think as the audience heard in our previous podcast, the data shows that there is a high degree of understanding and appreciation and value of portrait photography. COVID has created new norms. We are going to need to make some adjustments, and Kristina will talk about some of that. COVID has created concerns and cautions, but it has not created a complete withdrawal from life. We found out that portrait actives are photo actives. There's a high overlap between personal and professional consumption. People who are photo active and portrait active do engage with photo projects and products on a more regular basis. The really great news is that the portrait actives understand and want, and I say want, the value of a pro. And Kristina will talk about how to sell that value. We also were excited to learn that portrait actives are an identifiable and addressable audience. They're driven across the important life stages. There are special occasions and life moments that warrant and demand and have earned the responsibility and right of a pro to photograph them. Now, we did learn that consumers have choices and they use them. There are times they take the professional content outside the professional market to Shutterfly, to CVS, to Costco, Walmart. And we've got to do some things to try to repatriate that content back into the pro market. Really what I would say is, in summary, the results show that those who engage in purchasing photos from a pro identify the value a pro brings to capturing life's special moments, and the COVID experience revealed their want and willingness to invest time in photo activity. There was some stirring of sentiment towards family photos and towards spend, and most importantly, we are excited to say there was a high degree of interest and expectation of using a pro to update their family photos, as well as using a pro going forward. So really good news, Jed, and I think now the challenge becomes, how do we take that data and make it actionable? What do we do as a trade to respond and react to it?
Well, so today, for this, our second episode of In Focus, dealing with the survey that White House has sent out, we are joined by Kristina from White House Custom Color. Hello, Kristina.
Hello. Hey, Jen.
Can you introduce yourself a bit and tell us who you are?
Yeah. So I'm Kristina. I have been at White House for about 13 years now. I play many hats at White House, but one of my main roles here is on the marketing team. So I get to work with. Yeah, go ahead.
You're the right person to talk to then with regarding this survey. As far as I'm concerned, we have Ed, who essentially ran the survey, conducted the survey, gathers all this data. So we have all this stuff now that us lay people can look through, talking about myself. But you, being on the White House marketing team, are in a unique position to tell us, what does it mean for photographers today? And how should they react to all this data that we have, all this stuff that we gathered from this survey?
Yeah, I mean, I think as a team, we try to do that, and I think it's good for us to have data. But I think, again, like, what are the actionable items? What can we do in-house, and then what can photographers act on too? So I think that's, as a team, we ask ourselves that many times and try to come up with the right answers, and if not, find other solutions and other questions to answer.
What are the opportunities for White House and for their clients? Like, so we get this information back, it's really good news, everyone can feel good and pat, yes, everything's going to be just fine, right? But then what do White House clients, the pro photographers, what do they do?
I mean, I think, again, and we can go through some stuff internally. I think we have lots of stuff, opportunities for White House client specific, with some of the tools we developed in-house, some of the things we're actively working on. I think too, some simple steps from the survey that we originally looked at, there's some key things that you could hit on that would be easy to act on that, maybe weren't as normal a few months ago, but should be normal now. So I think one of them would be, preparation, providing the right protocols and precautions. We talked to a lot of our clients, and those who developed communications via email prior to their session, or, even on the door of the building, are having good success. I think, right away when this happens, many doors were closed, and it's like, well, are they going to come back, And I think, what kind of seems obvious at that point right now, that they are being precautious. I think, again, communication is key, So again, returning clients, send them updated rules and regulations. If you have new sessions, they should send it out like a normal process. I think of, photographers send out what to wear, that's like a normal process that photographers do. I think, again, they should add it to their normal protocol. Again, like inside White House, and it's kind of similar to consumers, we had to make some big pivots and changes, and adapting. Our staff internally have a wide gamut of feelings and comfortabilities of what they feel, right? Kind of like consumers. It's a wide range. Some consumers are okay right now to come back. They feel safe. They're good. Some don't want to leave their houses, and they're not sure when, But again, I think internally we've had to figure out, how do we make everyone feel comfortable? Everyone is important to us, and everyone, we need them all to survive. Just like photographers, they need their clients, and they need to find the right ones, but they need to, again, communicate the right precautions on those.
So you kind of have to be prepared and ready to kind of take care of or address kind of a bunch of people along the spectrum of their comfortability. Because you never know, if someone's extremely uncomfortable, or maybe someone is is compromised in some way or potentially compromised in some way and they come in, you're going to need to have your masks ready. You're going to need to have everything cleaned essentially and give people that peace of mind even beforehand. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. And like I've even seen, some of our clients doing social media posts, and it might feel kind of weird at first. I know internally too, it's like, do we show photos of the lab of everyone wearing masks, and the right answer is yes, we do.
Yeah.
And I think too, with photographers, they're showing behind the scenes, and I've seen some, and it's like for the senior ones, they get makeup artists is a big part of photography senior, line. And I've seen the makeup artists have a mask on and many times even a face shield because they're really close to the client. And then even the behind the scenes, you see the photographer, the people holding, all the extra props, they're all wearing masks. And it kind of just gives a sense of like, hey, actually they're doing a really good job. I feel comfortable back. I want to get my photos taken. I wasn't sure what is everyone else doing or how are they feeling? So I think, again, seems simple-minded right now, especially of course, we're trying to follow protocols, but again, just communicating and putting it out there.
So we generally promote in-person sales. A lot of people have been promoting in-person sales. I've been screaming in-person sales from the rooftops for almost 20 years. But now virtual selling is a bigger and bigger deal. Can you talk about that for a second?
Yeah, and I think too, it's some good stuff on the survey. What people think will change currently or not change, right? And I think, buying online, is going to happen, and I think it depends to what kind of market we're in. But for photography, parents and families are really familiar now with technologies and Zoom.
Yep.
That allow photographers to do virtual sales. We have our in-house studio tool with Zoom. You could do some really great things. I think too, it opened the door for many photographers. I think too, a lot of times, like you said, in-person sales, you say, give them that concierge level service, make sure you're doing the whole shebang to make it worth it.
Right.
Well, I think, virtual sales can be in that same vein in the sense of it still can be high end. You just can do it right. And you don't have to invest a lot. You could get yourself a small mic and a little setup where you're going to do your Zoom session. And honestly, it might open the doors for people who don't have a giant sales room before, So I think it opens the door that way too. I also think too, our client success team is made up a lot of our top photographers, around the world. And a lot of them were excellent at in-person sales, partly why they're successful, right? So I think for a lot of them, they've had to pivot. And again, I think it depends too. It doesn't have to be all in. It could be a hybrid. Again, what do you feel comfortable with? What does your clients feel comfortable with? But again, I think as a positive of COVID, right? And it's hard to say that there's positives of COVID, but a positive is these virtual sales, you can take advantage of them. And we're seeing huge results from clients that we're working with that honestly, I think they blowing themselves away with how much money they can get in the sales. People are comfortable in their home, but they can also show them products, and they can actually show them through our studio app, you can show them products on their wall virtually, So I think you can create that emotion and do the same thing.
As they're sitting in that room with that wall.
Right. Yeah.
So there's some lemonade from the lemons. I think you're pointing, it's a virtual sale. It's a different experience, but it can still be a great experience, right? There are things that you can put into place to still make it a really nice experience for the client, right?
Exactly. Yep.
Think about it the same way.
I think Kristina makes a great point, this hybrid concept. I mean, the advocacy for in-person selling, obviously data and statistics show the highest sales rate, the highest average order value happens when you have the client seeing, touching, feeling, emoting. That's hard to do in a COVID environment. And I think Kristina's point is valid. There are going to be some consumers and clients who just say, I fundamentally do not want to be in the studio in spite of all the great protocols you've done, but I want to see the products. And I think that they've become very accustomed to e-commerce platforms and so forth. I think there are other consumers who are not negligent in the respect of what COVID's risk is, but I think that they are comfortable in the studio and think they would prefer that. And so I think Kristina makes a great point. We're not advocating that it's one or the other. It's not an or world, it's an and world. And I think that there has to be a good read at the initial signing of the client. What are the expectations the client has, and what are the assumptions they're going to make about how they want to be sold to? But Kristina's point, I've talked with the CSP team, there is evidence that you can sell virtually with the same or higher thresholds than you've sold in the studio. And so I think both methods, and that gets back to the adaptation, right? We need to adjust. There is no right or wrong answer. It's going to be a hybrid answer going forward.
So really lots of good news. I mean, it's always, I think it's always good to look at the glass half full, but there's really a lot of good stuff that we learned from this. And I think I was curious, Kristina in particular, what's one thing that jumped out at you from the survey, like personally? What did you think was really exciting specifically?
I mean, I think it's interesting, right? I think as marketing, it's thinking about what are photographers, what are their hurdles, right? And what can they do? I think overall it was the whole thing was exciting in the sense of overall the consumers. And again, we had a people buy-in rate of who already were purchasing, photo products. Right. But they still seem hopeful, and they still wanted products, and they still wanted the professional photographer for the right reasons, so I think overall it was exciting. Yeah.
I mean, it's the future looks bright really, despite all the chaos, which was good news. How does White House intend to use the data and apply the results that we got?
Yeah. I mean, I think, we were constantly thinking about how can we help professional photographers? How can we support, we support so many small businesses across the globe. Internally, we always say, when you succeed, we succeed. Our family business runs on the partnerships of small businesses all over. During this emotional time, we're navigating it together, right? No one knows exactly where we're going or where we're going to end up, but the more we can learn and the more we can do for us all to sustain and thrive, the better. For us, the data provides key insights, and quantifications of photo activity in general. Speaking to the consumers, like how much are they going to buy, and are they going to continue to buy? And it did show that. Knowing the need for photography products and what type of products helps us on the right path. Our customer service team, kind of in April, we began along with our client success team and some industry leaders, teamed up with White House to offer one-on-one Zoom meetings. So again, we saw the need for communication to change, but we're offering one-on-one sessions for any client in sales and marketing and how to run your studio. Vicki helps us. She's showing people daily, here's my lighting setup, we have customer service doing, simple things as rows and in Photoshop. But again, learning new ways to connect with each other. And again, we're not only learning what are photographers' hurdles, but how can we help them? And then also we have a lot of internally really great staff who are already photographers, artists, and kind of collaborating together with the photographer. We've always kind of prided on customer service, and I kind of think too the same goes with photographers. They pride themselves on in the concierge level service, but we have to find new ways to communicate. How can we help? How can we market to them? How can we reach them?
What tools specifically moving forward do you think White House can develop and deliver to support photographers as a result of the survey specifically?
Yeah, I mean, I think the survey, again, is good news, right? I think it's kind of saying they still want, there's a need out there. We feel positive that the path we've set out on, several years of developing and engineering tools to help photographers sell is the right path, which is good. I think White House is a little separate in the field in the sense of we have an engineered team, So I think we have our in-house studio app, that allows photographers to make these different sales paths. Creating wall collages to sell has been a huge success for us and kind of with our client success team. The clients, again, with the virtual sales can make these wall collages using images from clients' home. And it doesn't have to be if they don't provide it, but they can quickly design with all the specs in there and give them back the client a proof, Same with cards and albums. Both those products were once really hard to design, right? I think it's hard to keep up with the trends. They're time consuming, but we've made it so simple that it's a no-brainer, to make those sales. I think, too, we'll continue to develop tools and resources to make it easier and efficient for photographers to sell their art to consumers. We realize consumers need and require multiple paths of sale, and we believe in tools to allowing them and giving them, the options is our key to success for everybody. So again, I think we'll continue to, and that's part of the surveys, right? What do they need? And we want to hear from photographers,
let me toss
Jed, if I
this
could jump in for a
question out.
sec.
Oh, go ahead, jump in, because I was just going to ask you to.
Kristina is so eloquent with her answer. That was an excellent answer. I think when it's stepping back from the specific tools and tactics, one of the things we didn't talk about in session one that this data does is it debunks the myth, right? I think one of the biggest helps we can be to photographers is the perspective or perception that the consumer does not want to use them, that people don't want to print. There's a high level of energy in the non-actives, those who refuse to buy portraiture, and I think we allow that to overshadow the opportunity. And as Kristina said, there is so much upside. Consumers who are active in the market today, and we won't go back to the data, but there were so many questions that had very positive answers in terms of the momentum and the trends that photographers would expect to see with clients. But, I think one of the things that it will help us do is communicate, remind photographers that they have a gift, that they're tremendously craftsmen, they're artistic, they're creative, they're really artistic geniuses. And the consumer gets that, and I know Kristina will probably talk about some marketing communications that really focuses on special occasions and consumers. But, the thing that I walked away with is we've debunked the myth. We can't hide anymore behind, oh, woe is me, nobody wants to use my services,
Right.
I'm going to be too expensive. The data doesn't show that. In fact, the data refutes that. So anyway, sidebar, jumped in.
But I think that ties right in. What were you going to say?
I was agreeing with Ed. I think, one of the things is, like Ed said, the clients, the survey did debunk is there's clients out there that still value professional photography and still will spend the money on it, right? So how do you market the right audience? How do you get them in? The right clients are still out there. Your skill, the photography skill is still what they want, but you need to find and go get them. It's not easy. Ed will attest to, he's been doing this for several, I don't know.
Decades, I'd say.
More than several,
couple
right?
years.
The target for the pro market is usually around, 30 to 44 years old. They have a child or children at home. They usually range from 50K to, over 200. There's also the niches of, senior and wedding, but, knowing, their demographics, targeting messages, not only allows you to say the right things, how you say it and where you say it. So again, like Ed said, you can't just say, well, it's COVID and no one wants to spend any money, right? I think that's part of the positive thing for us is that means that there's still work out there to get. You have to have the right message, and there's audiences there, but you have to do the things to get them, and the key is knowing who you're going after and who you're speaking to them. And marketing is emotional, right? You have to get the right message out there.
Yeah. If I was going okay, so I want to toss this question out to both of you. So it's a two-part question, and I'd like both of you to tackle it. What do you think? What are your recommendations for people to do differently? And what do you think they should do more of? So first, what should people do differently right now? And what should they do more of right now? Those two things. Kristina, you go first.
Okay. I think there's a lot, right? I think some easy ones differently would be like the virtual sales, right? But also too, I think like with the aftermath of COVID, there's an added dimension of positioning portraiture, bringing comfort and a sense of normalcy, also providing heirlooms, clients will treasure forever. So I think speaking to them and driving awareness of your business and identifying, your creativity is the right path. Photographers are visual. You need to market and communicate and tell a story. So I think right now, more than ever, photographers need to do that. They need to use this, family is comforting and family is more important. They need to use this as a positive and make it part of their business.
Sure.
So she stole all the good answers, right? And
I noticed that too.
no, I think Kristina's nailed it though. I think the major difference is recognizing that you're selling yourself, you're selling your personality, you're selling your experience and how you're going to serve the client. And you're going to be doing that in a different way. Even being found, you're going to be found differently as people are surveying, perusing the web and looking at social media and reviews. I think the other thing is, selling the experience, not the product. The product sales will come as a result of the consumer's expectation and understanding of how to use it. I think this begs the question, Jed, and I know Chris will know I'm going to say this. We need to do more surveys, right? We need to get into we got into the some of the what and some of the why, but we've really got to dig deeper. What is the motivation? Why does somebody buy a $2,000 piece of wall art? What does it do emotionally? What does it do experientially? And so I think, to the great question you've asked about what's different, I think we've got to get deeper into unpacking, how do people use portraits? What value use case does it serve? How is it changing from physical prints, the loose 4, 6, 5, 7, 8, 10, 10, 13, 11, 14, 16, 20. That's going away, but it's being replaced with canvas and metal and bamboo and, different types of wraps and framed fine arts. And I think that's the other thing is we've got to learn and help our photographer clients appreciate and understand what's coming next. What is the next gallery wrap? What is the next photo album that, came onto the scene 10 or 20 years ago? But I think adapt to the technology. Don't be intimidated by it. Use it as a weapon to secure your position in the market and so forth.
Kristina, what are your parting thoughts?
I don't know. I laugh, I think we sit and have long meetings about these thoughts, right? So I think they're all over the gamut. I think overall, like an easy summation is it's positive. We feel inspired and informed. It's kind of nerve-wracking sometimes. Ed loves surveys, but it's nerve-wracking to send out surveys because we could get results that we don't like, right? Or that would not be good for photographers. And internally, we kind of committed to doing the surveys. We committed to, even sharing the results. Like we really want to help photographers. And I think too, now more than ever, we want to help photographers. We want to know what they need and figure out what can we do as partnership, but again, I think it is positive. We're committed and want to help and figure out how to communicate the value of a professional photography, to others.
So Ed, to jump off that a little bit for your parting thoughts, we really did allow for this survey to come back with disappointing results, didn't we? We gave the opportunity. I mean, it was essentially like, here's a very honest, open survey. Tell us what you really think and where you really are. And in conclusion, afterwards, we got good results, didn't we?
Yeah, I'd say we got great results. And you're absolutely right. We wrote the survey where be careful what you ask because you may not want to hear the answer, as Kristina said.
Right.
There were a lot of response options where the respondent could have been very negative, could have been down on portraiture, too expensive. I've got my iPhone. I've got a collection that's bigger than I know what to do with. And those were things we wanted them to think about in that context of an alternative response. They did come back with, in almost all cases, a higher percentage of yes answers than no answers. And so I think that, say we debunk the myth. I think the other thing is, and Kristina used the word confidence. If there's a takeaway for me, it's that this supports the belief system that people understand and value the professionalism and the quality and the craftsmanship that exists. There are times in life where we need to personify and chronicle and document who we are, what we stand for, what we've celebrated. And professionals have a knack of doing that better and different than anybody else, certainly than we can do ourselves. And I think that the survey data, it screams, the quality, the craftsmanship, the artistry is majestic. I mean, there's an awe and wonder when you look at the work, of the professional class of trade. I think what's happened in the last 10 years is we've beaten ourselves down. There are those who buy less prints. There are those who don't buy prints at all. And we allow that minority of consumers and clients to change the way we view ourselves. And so the word confidence is my takeaway. There should be a high degree of confidence, a high degree of belief in not only themselves, but in the people that they're going to serve, that there are occasions coming. And I think the other thing is, and Kristina touched on this, and it's a great thought, if ever there was a time that sentimentality and emotion touched the heart, it's now. What COVID has taught us is things happen suddenly, right? We were all on planes and planes, trains, and automobiles, January, February. And then March 10th, it went national. And life has never been the same since March 10th, March 11th, when we declared it was nationalized. I think in the light of that, there is a degree of expectation that consumers want to document, and Kristina uses the word, it comforts, it provides normalcy. It's one way to get back to a past that we cling to and desperately want to live again. So I think that, great news. I think that White House is doing a lot of great things as a result of the data, continuing to understand how consumers use the products, why they buy the products they buy, and reminding photographers, you're good at what you do. Don't be embarrassed to ask for the price and the products that you're offering.
Ed and Kristina, thank you for joining me for this second episode of In Focus. And for those of you listening, we will have a third episode that we're putting together with a couple of real world photographers who have been and are in the trenches along with the rest of you. So don't miss out on that. Thanks again, guys. It was great to see you.
Thank you, Jed.
Hey guys, thanks for watching this conversation presented by White House Custom Color on YouTube. Be sure to check out our other content and click that subscribe button right there. Right. Right there. It's there somewhere.